President Obama has been criticized over the past 24 hours, including by some members of Congress, for a lack of an anti-ISIS strategy in Iraq. But the president has seemingly put the blame directly on Iraq's government. Listen to this.
We don't yet have a complete strategy because it requires commitments on the part of the Iraqis.
All right, let's bring in the ambassador of Iraq to the United States, Luqman Faili. Mr. Ambassador, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You heard what the president had to say, and let me play a little bit more of what he said at that news conference yesterday, because also he's clearly disappointed in what your government is doing or not doing. Listen to this.
And one of the things that we're still seeing is in Iraq, places where we've got more training capacity than we have recruits. So part of my discussion with Prime Minister Abadi was how do we make sure that we get more recruits in? A big part of the answer there is our outreach to Sunni tribes.
All right, so you heard the president say the U.S. does not have a complete strategy right now because your government, your military, is not doing what you should be doing. Your reply to the president?
I think Mr. President is right in the sense that we have to have a complete picture, everybody working with each other in relation to operations, strategies, media, and others as well. However, on Iraq, we have been doing as much as we can. We're still having these fights with the reflection we've just had in Beiji and others. It's all a reflection that we cannot accommodate ISIS. We will endeavor, certainly with the U.S. support, and we appreciate that all the time. But I think we need to work closer with each other in addressing these issues.
Because he says the U.S. has trainers there, but the Iraqi military is not showing up. There's not enough recruits to go ahead and train.
I think your report talked about fluidity of it. So it's not just, this is not across the whole of Iraq, might be pockets here and there. The issue, if we're short of ammunition, or if it's harder to get to that base, or other aspect of it as well. As a strategy, working together, a defeat of ISIS in Iraq, the focus has to be Iraq. The focus has to be Ramadi and has to be Nainawa, Mosul province.
So why did the Iraqi military simply abandon Mosul, the second largest city, exactly 1 year ago today, and leave behind so much U.S. supplied military equipment? And then more recently, they did exactly the same thing in Ramadi.
In Ramadi, there wasn't an equipment issue. It was an issue we're still looking at that thoroughly. There's a lot of investigation going on. And in relation to Mosul, I think that's a very big disappointment for all of us in Iraq and certainly for the region. We cannot accommodate ISIS being there. We need support of others as well. However, we are a new democracy. We are a new country in development. U.S. Troops left us with no even a single fighter plane. Let's not forget that. And I think we need to get our politics right, but we need the support of others. And let me be clear.
And you heard, though.
Let me be clear.
Please.
Others need us as much as we need them.
Because
this
you
is
heard
a threat to all.
You heard, and they were really blunt words, the Defense Secretary of the United States, Ash Carter, tell our Barbara Starr, our Pentagon correspondent, that your troops, in his words, showed no will to fight in Ramadi.
I don't think anybody will benefit from such words. The Americans, as much as us, we have partnership, we have the will for it. Every day, your reports reflect, every day we have these fights on different operations, different theaters. Iraq are paying blood, dear, sweat, and resources every day. As our Prime Minister said, ISIS are targeting an attrition of war. We need to be focused on that. We cannot accommodate for it. I think ISIS is not an Iraqi problem. It's a regional, it's a global problem. What you saw in Paris last week and yesterday in Germany reflect that. I think we all need to be on the same wavelength or same page and talk about the threat to all.
But you know, those of us who've been to Iraq, we love Iraqis, are so disappointed that after, a decade of U.S. training and arming and providing support for the Iraqi military, in an instance like the battle in Ramadi, where you overwhelmingly outnumber these ISIS terrorists, you guys abandoned Ramadi.
I can assure you that after 2003, the will of the people to have democracy, to have is still there. The determination to build the country is still there. We had no state after 2003. The Americans were there. They abandoned us in 2011. Now it's important that the country work with us.
Let me just be precise. When you say the United States abandoned Iraq in 2011 when the U.S. pulled out troops, right? Is that what you're saying?
2011, we had no single fighter plane.
That's a fact. The U.S. pulled out its troops in 2011. That was a schedule that President Bush had put in place that President Obama implemented. And President Obama said he had no choice because the Prime Minister at that time, Nouri al-Maliki, refused to sign a status of forces agreement, which would give the U.S. military protection from being arrested by the Iraqis.
I don't want to go into the history of who's what, why, but what I would say is that we are now have a serious problem. We need to work with each other. Iraqis feel that the United States as an ally need to stand with us for our common threats. We had significant political change last year as a result of Mosul, and we're working with each other. We have a very united team at the leadership in relation to Speaker, Parliament, President, and Prime Minister.
Excuse me for interrupting, Mr. Ambassador, because I just want to be precise, and you can tell me if I'm right. You're blaming the United States for the disaster that is taking place. Wait a second. There's a disaster in Iraq right now, as you and I probably agree. The United States you're blaming?
I'm saying we all made mistakes. Let's not be wonder on that. Let's focus on the future. Let's work with each other. As far as mistakes, these mistakes are made. There was change in administration. There was change of policy. We appreciate that. We're not questioning that. What we're saying now, as a result of us not working closely with each other back in 2011, now everybody is paying the price. We need to work with each other moving forward.
One final question. The former U.S. Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, has told the Times of London that, and I'm quoting him now, the idea that we could fashion a democracy in Iraq seemed to me unrealistic. He said throughout the aftermath of 2003, when the U.S. launched the invasion, got rid of Saddam Hussein, he never believed it was realistic to create a democracy in Iraq. Your reaction to Donald Rumsfeld?
I'm sure Secretary Rumsfeld will appreciate that having 10 elections, 3 change of leadership in a very civil way. This doesn't happen in that region. We have stick to it. The latest election we had, 62% of the people participated. So it's not an issue of votes and people going there. It's an issue of us working with each other, believing in a new democracy, working. So it's not an issue of democracy per se. It's an issue of a new system based on the old heritage of Saddam Hussein. That's where we are. We appreciate what the United States did for us. We are looking for further support. We are allied. Let's stick to that.
But you have a lot of work to do to reassure the Iraqi Sunnis, the Iraqi Kurds, that they are really part of Iraq.
We have a nascent democracy. We need to work with each other. Everybody has a threat. Every component of Iraq have to live with a threat of ISIS. Let's get rid of that. Let's work with each other. I think the team is there. The spirit is there. We need to get the tactic and certainly certain element of the strategy. But let me repeat that. It's as much as we need the West, we need United States and others. Thank you very much for all the help. You need us as well here.
Luqman Faili is the Iraqi ambassador to the United States. Mr. Ambassador, you got a tough job. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
We'll stay in close touch with you.